When you hear the name
CandyMan, CandyMan, CandyMan,
what's the first thing you think of? On the surface, he's no different than any other cinematic slasher, but if you look deeper, past the menacing voice and the bloody hook, you'll see that CandyMan is easily the most misunderstood horror movie villain of all time.
I say this because, even though you know the way to summon him and the way that he kills, do you know why CandyMan kills?
Freddy Krueger is a child murderer out to kill and torment the children of Elm Street for vengeance and sadistic pleasure. Chucky is a voodoo-obsessed serial killer who wants to escape his doll body and kills anyone who gets in his way. And Leatherface is a mentally challenged Hulk who kills out of fear or under the direction of his psychotic family. But what is CandyMan trying to accomplish? We're supposed to think that he's rejected death and returned to terrorize and kill people to avenge his murder. But how is killing those foolish enough to say his name 5 times a revenge? The answer is simple. He isn't killing for revenge. He's killing as a form of art. CandyMan is in death the same thing that he was while alive, a passionate artist who wants to create, and he wants to be immortalized through his creations. The CandyMan story is really about an artist and his creative passion. The easiest place to look for proof of this is in his death,
but a look into his life will give a more complete understanding of his motivations.
CandyMan's real name is Daniel Robitaille, and he was born in the mid-1800s during a time where slavery was still not a decade gone. Due to his father's ingenuity, he was allowed to attend school and taught to socialize with high society, where he gained a reputation for his exceptional painting skills. Needless to say, but if a black man during this time was being praised and allowed to comfortably assimilate with the still racist and segregated America, he must have been an amazing artist. Developing artistic skill on that level requires more than raw talent. It requires time and passion. So we can assume countless hours went into honing an ability that would allow him to transcend racism and social limitations. I only say this to point out that his identity was intertwined, if not dependent, upon his artistic ability. His artwork gained him a grand reputation, and he was commissioned by a wealthy landowner to paint a portrait of his virgin daughter, Caroline. During this time, they fell in love, and once the father found out about the relationship, he sent a small mob to hunt him down. Now it's easy to accept what's being shown to us, a forbidden romance and a love so powerful that it allowed a tormented soul to return for revenge.
But that's not what's really being shown.
The first place where I noticed the truth about CandyMan's motivations was the removal of his hand and the hook that he replaced it with. After being caught by a small mob, he was held down and his right hand was cut off. But why his hand? If anything symbolic should have been removed as a punishment for sleeping with Caroline, his hand is not quite the correct body part. No. His hand was removed because it was the most valuable thing that he had. It was his painting hand. As he lay there dying, Caroline was brought before him so she could see him reduced to a man without talent, skill, or identity. All qualities heavily dependent on an artistic ability that was taken away with the removal of his hand. Now he's returned from beyond death, and the hand that he used to create in life has been replaced by a new creative instrument, a metal hook. Unable to accept the loss of his true passion and life's purpose, he now creates gruesome artwork that lives on through legend and gives him a greater recognition than he ever received while alive. The next detail that proved this was a tale about artistic passion was the locations where CandyMan haunted most frequently. He can appear anywhere in the world as long as there's a mirror and a person willing to summon him. But the areas where the legend and his presence are the strongest all seem to share a common theme. They are all places saturated with artistic expression. In the first film, the walls of the dilapidated apartment building where he is rumored to reside are covered with graffiti and murals. In the second film, Farewell to the Flesh, he haunts New Orleans on the eve of Mardi Gras, an event known for its creativity and expression. Even then, the internal walls of his old family mansion are covered with art and an altar with a terrifying portrait of his post-mortem appearance. In the less popular but still canon third film, Day of the Dead, he haunts a Los Angeles art gallery and appears in several graffiti-drenched areas throughout the film. In all 3 films, CandyMan is almost always accompanied by some form of artistic expression surrounding him. It's no coincidence that a supernatural being tied to this world because of his love of art would reside in places covered by it. The next clue that stood out was the bees. After his hand was removed, honey was smeared on his body and a swarm of bees stung him nearly to death. They could have easily mistaken him for the one who stole their honey to begin with. But why then did they follow him beyond death? Why does an angry swarm live inside of his spectral body? And why do they follow his commands? The answer here is more symbolic, but again we must look beyond the surface. Like CandyMan, bees are defined by their creations. They are the most artistic and creative insects in the world, and it only makes sense that they would bond with a man who's also defined by his creative ability. What animal could be a better representation of artistic passion than bees? Bees create delicious honey, wax, royal jelly, beautifully symmetrical honeycombs, and they even dance. Both CandyMan and the bees are connected because of their creative identities. Their connection so strong that he can control swarms of them and even offers them refuge inside of his hollowed out torso. CandyMan frequently speaks of blood as if it's merely a medium of expression.
They will say that I have shed innocent blood. What's blood for, if not for shedding?
If we just replace two words with the word paint, that sentence would make more sense. What is paint for, if not for painting? We of course know that the purpose of blood isn't to be removed from the body through violent trauma, so it makes more sense that his statement is referring to blood as the very thing that he used to create in life. This is yet another look into CandyMan's true desires, his desire to continue creating beyond death. Throughout the entire first film, CandyMan asked the protagonist Helen to
be my victim.
But what does that mean exactly? He didn't need permission to murder anyone else, so why her? Most would agree that the purpose of art is to convey a message, idea, or a perspective. It can be a powerful tool to evoke emotion as well as inspiration. This is the reason for CandyMan's attempts to essentially transform Helen into an artist like him. Although not as talented as CandyMan, Helen was willing to risk her safety in order to gather information for her thesis and dedicated herself to the project of creating a great piece of writing.
Your death will be a tale to frighten children, to make lovers cling closer in their rapture. Come with me and be immortal.
He's asking her to willingly sacrifice herself to her own creative passion and simultaneously become his greatest creation. At no point in the films does CandyMan mention revenge or killing because of vengeance. He's only concerned with his own legend and reputation, and he admits this several times.
I am rumor. It is a blessed condition, believe me, to be whispered about at street corners, to live in other people's dreams, but not to have to be.
CandyMan's entire existence is based on his connection to his artwork. If you summon him, you allow him to create. This is his entire reason for being. The iconic horror movie villain CandyMan, methodical, intense, and brutal, refused to let death separate him from his life's passion. He is not out for revenge. He is simply more complicated than any other horror movie antagonist, and so much more than just a killer. CandyMan is a misunderstood and passionate, tortured artist.